All right, guys, we are jumping into Unit 37, Arizona. 37 is divided into two subunits, 37A and 37B. Guys, this is a phenomenal place to hunt mule deer. By place, that's kind of a generic term, but 37A and B has some of the biggest mule deer in the state. Yes, the state, I'm including the strip and the kaibab. However, these deer are Sonoran muleys and they are hard to find, and they live in nasty country for the hunter. So not necessarily nasty country as far as hiking, but a nasty country, arid, desolate, flat country where these deer literally live and die of old age. So 37A, let's start there. 37A is basically directly west of Tucson I-10, and it runs north-south along I-10 western, and it's got some really nasty mountains, mountain ranges in 37A, the Sawtooth Mountains, Silverbell Mountains, really nasty stuff. So those deer that live in 37A live a very, very tough life. Big old nasty Sonoran mule deer, wide and heavy. There's quite a few 200 plus inch mule deer in 37A, but again, guys, these deer are few and far between. The populations are decent, but these mule deer are just hard to find. When you get up high and you look into these flats, I mean, so much cactus, so many saguaros, so much brush, and the country is really cut up. It's really divided up. It's not easy to glass. It's not easy to hunt. You can drive around almost all of 37A, but when you get up into some of those nasty mountains, you're not really driving. You're glassing. I mean, it's rugged stuff. So how to hunt these deer? You really got to pay attention to the water. From year to year, water can be way different. So 37A is really desert, true desert, Sonoran desert style. This year there's going to be water everywhere. Last year there was water everywhere. There is going to be a lot of water access for these deer so that they can live in even more remote areas. So pay attention to where the water is, look for sign, look for tracks, and then start there. So you're obviously looking around tanks or any kind of water source, and you're looking for that bigger buck, that wider buck track, and then starting there. So these deer can hide in the mesquites, hide in the Palo Verde trees and the saguaro cactuses very easily, and they stay really nocturnal. So mule deer, in my opinion, this is an example of where 37A and 37B have giant mule deer. But in my opinion, it's harder to kill one of these giant mule deer in the general season rifle hunt than it is to kill a giant Coues deer in a similar hunt. So that's just something to keep in mind. These mule deer, they just do different things. They have a lot bigger home range. They can be and stay more nocturnal than Coues whitetail do. So if you're looking for a giant trophy class unit in Arizona that's not the strip, that's not the kaibab, and you can actually draw it every couple years, then I would 100% focus on 37A and 37B. 37A, they give out a lot less tags than 37A, so there's going to be a lot less hunting pressure. The deer population does correlate with that, so there's not as big of a deer population in 37A. But again, you want to go where the big deer are. There's really big deer in 37A. Expect tough hunting. Expect not to see a deer. Honestly, like if you go into one of these hunts and you're like, I'm gonna look for a trophy mule deer, and you go to where the trophy mule deer live, which is in some of that more arid, nasty country, you're not gonna see a ton of deer. I'm gonna tell you right now. I mean, you may go a day or two without ever seeing a deer or ever seeing a buck. So it's one of those type units. But when you do see a buck, typically it's an upper age class deer, old buck. Whether or not he has the genetics to be 200-inch deer, he definitely will have the age to be a 200-inch deer. So phenomenal area to hunt deer. 37B is a lot more hospitable for most people. They give out a lot more tags. You're gonna see a lot more deer. It's a really big unit. It goes, I mean, it's the east side of I-10 all the way up to Casa Grande, and you're gonna see a lot more deer. Again, though, if you want to get into that bigger mule deer country, you're gonna have to go into some of that nasty stuff, and it's, you know, all over. So on the Newman Mountains or on the northern side of 37B, those are giant mountains for the desert. Not crazy high, but nasty, rugged, arid mountains. Not a ton of habitat for deer, not a ton of water, doesn't hold a huge population of deer, but you got to go in some of these areas where these deer can live longer. And when you go and you drive and you glass and you see these mesquite flats that run on for 50 miles, that's where the deer live. Really hard to find during the general season. Again, it's really hot. There's not a whole lot of opportunities to find them during the daytime, and they're not rutting. They're not out in the open. They're literally, these mule deer are hard horned and they're cagey and they're surviving, and they're not going to present themselves as an easy opportunity for you. So there's again 37B. They give it a lot more tags. Stuff just north of Tucson, beautiful country. You drive around there, you'll see deer. I mean, you're gonna drive around, you'll see some stuff. 33 is the border of 37B to the east. And these tags, guys, are any antler deer tags. So there is no Coues deer tags in 37A or B. It's any antler deer. However, the unit like 37B that borders 33, you can have some really big whitetail, Coues whitetail coming over from 33 and kind of using some of that higher country where they can cross that road. There has been some very, very big Coues whitetail deer killed in 37B. It's a huge unit. It really is just a giant unit, and you gotta really do your research, do your scouting, and be very comfortable with not seeing, especially if you're trying to target a big buck in 37A or 37B. Be comfortable with not seeing a lot of deer. So these bigger bucks, guys, are not going to live on a lot of these ATV trails. Some of them will, and more specifically the ones that do, who do live on they're living in the flats, like the mesquite flats, where you can drive all day long, all throughout that country. And if they're bedded under a mesquite 50 yards off the road, you're not going to see them. So how you have to locate these deer is scouting, getting high with an elevation, scouting the flats, and checking water, making sure that you understand what water sources are being used or what water sources are available during the time of your hunt or leading up to your hunt, because if it stays wet, there's going to be a lot of water. So for all these deer, which is awesome, but it does spread all the deer out, and it creates a little bit tougher circumstances for a hunter, especially glassing, because it really spreads them out into all kinds of country that they can live in and thrive, where typically on a dry year they wouldn't be able to live very easily. So both units, 37A and 37B, have trophy, 200-inch trophy potential. Honestly, some giant deer. Really, the biggest deer get killed during archery season from year to year in both of these units. So a lot of times the big deer aren't killed until the rut happens, and they crawl out of these mesquite flats and they make themselves visible to the hunter and make themselves a little more vulnerable, being around a bunch of does and chasing them around. So if it's something that you're really seriously after a giant deer, really look at both the archery and the rifle season and kind of what fits your mold, what fits your style. Obviously the archery seasons are later on, December and January, and in August. Sometimes they do limit these August archery hunts from year to year because it can be so dry and the deer are very vulnerable around water in these desert units. So you got to look at that, make sure you're not just going out in August during the August archery season. You need to make sure that whatever unit you decide to go into is actually open, because some of these Southern Arizona units, they shut down in August to give the deer a little bit of a break. So but 37B is awesome mule deer, some of the biggest mule deer in the state that you will never ever see, and you will also never see a picture of. I've seen some pictures off some just running into friends and dudes out hunting. I've literally seen pictures of deer that would it'd blow your mind that they come out of these units. So anyway, Try to draw it. It's not impossible to draw. Hang in there if you're not seeing any deer. Good luck. Hit me up in my description below if you have any questions about guiding, outfitting, scouting packages, DIY drop camps. All my stuff is on my websites or whatever. Hit me up through social media, whatever you want to do. And leave a comment on this video if you want to. And until next time, guys, I got a couple more videos coming out. I'm going to talk about the high 30s and 40s units, which are a whole different beast. And I'm going to talk about youth hunts too. Do a whole video about youth deer opportunities. So, all right, guys, talk to you later. See ya.